One of the hardest hit areas from yesterday's disaster was the village of Sawani. Sitting on the banks of the Waimanu River, 80 homes in the village were not spared as the Waimanu River burst its banks yesterday. But thanks to the intervention of National Fire Authority today, the task of getting rid of mud and silt from homes was made a lot easier. Apisalame Rambo with that story.
The aftermath of Mother Nature as she wreaked havoc in Sawani last night, sweeping out debris that has inundated the floor of their homes after an experience that can be hard to forget.
I think we did not took heed of what came out in the papers, and that was why we were caught by surprise. The typical example is that all those who were not properly kept and were left idle behind when villagers started to run for their lives.
This is but the beginning of a cleaning up process that can take days to complete. Household items sunned out after a good soaking last night. The same river that wreaked havoc just 24 hours ago now been relied upon to help villagers clean up.
Even now, as you've seen across the paddock down there, people are uprooting their ndalo from the farms. I don't think so that will take us long, but it will certainly take its effect very shortly.
If these students thought it was a break from school, they were wrong. Thick mud and silt requiring youthful energy to clean up. Inside the village church, a part of the village that has evacuated last night are already settling in. For mothers, feeding the little ones is all they could think of, as well as preparing a well-earned meal for the men of the village.
There should be some sort of dredging done. You know, looking at what happened in the Reo River, at the banks of the Reo River, where it was dredged sometimes 2 years ago, and they haven't experienced anything. So if that could also be done to the Waimanu River.
Even the little ones gave a hand in some maintenance works. The National Fire Authority arrived just in time. The industrial high-pressure hose working wonders, removing mud and silt in a matter of minutes. From Sawani village, the Waimanu River seems quiet and harmless. But further below, near the mouth of the Reo River, its contribution is obvious. Commuters are still stranded on each side of this river crossing, and water levels doesn't seem to be dropping. As you can see, the heavy downpour has finally stopped. But here at the notorious Tonga crossing in the Rewa Delta, it normally takes 24 hours for Mother Nature to finally quieten down. Apisalame Rambo, FJ1 News.
Also suffering huge losses was a Sawani-based timber company. This timber company on the banks of the Waimanu River bore the full brunt of raging waters last night. When they arrived this morning, all their timber had washed away in flood waters. According to its managing director, Krishnamurti, they were taken by surprise as floodwaters rose in a matter of minutes. Estimated losses has been placed at $200,000.
The water just came all of a sudden inside, so we couldn't save this. Timber was all piled here. As you can see, all just went in the water. And we have some timber inside there, all floating away. And you can see there too, all the posts went up to those houses there. A big timber and the post was here for Vinod Patel and R.C. Manubhai's water, so we couldn't save it. Because all of a sudden the water just came. And if the water took this road straight this way it was going, not this way here. The water, it was very forced, so nobody could do anything. Only thing they could do is just save the papers in the office. That's it, they took it. But all the posts all lying over here, as you can see, it's all gone. It's just like a ground here.
And as he now enters into full civilian life as well as politics, Prime Minister Vorenke Bainimarama's legacy as the country's longest-serving army commander also marks the end of an era. Our reporter Apisalame Rambo takes a snapshot at some of the key moments over the 15-year leadership at RFMF, moments that have now defined the national landscape.
As of 6 o'clock this evening, the military has taken over the government, has executive authority, and the running of this country. I urge all citizens to remain calm and maintain the peace that currently prevails.
Just after his appointment as Army Commander, his leadership was put to the test. The 2000 upheaval saw the military hand taking Garase as their man. But it was 6 years later at 6 p.m. on the 5th of December 2006 that he got the world's attention, ushering in martial law as he took over executive authority from the very person he chose just 6 years earlier.
As commander of the RFMF, I, under the legal doctrine of necessity, will step into the shoes of the president given that he has been blocked from exercising his constitutional powers.
What followed was a quick succession of power, as Bainimarama acted quickly to make his intentions known, appointing a caretaker PM. It was a role that he was to later assume himself.
I, Josiah Vorenge Bainimarama, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of the Fiji Islands according to law. So help me God.
A challenge before the Fiji Appeals Court forced the inevitable, leading to the eventual abrogation of the 1997 Constitution.
I, Josiah Vorenge Bainimarama, being appointed Prime Minister, do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare that I will, to the best of my judgment, and at all times when so required, freely give my counsel and advice to the President.
While his 39-year military background has always been reflected in his leadership style, life as a civilian and aspiring politician now awaits him. Bainimarama will also acknowledge that he is not Fiji's first army commander to seize power and evolve into politics. How history will judge him will soon be determined as the nation returns to the polls. Apisolome Rambo, FJ1 News.
The Fiji Mahogany Trust Board held its first meeting today, and key issues on their agenda was transparency and accountability by landowners when it comes to leases and licenses. Apisolome Rambo with that story.
A meeting of representatives from the 14 mahogany stations discussed, among other issues, a way that will help landowners to benefit from the value-added process of the mahogany industry.
Well, first of all, you need a plan, and that is why we have an annual corporate plan aligned to government's overall plan on sustainable socio-economic development. Then you'll have a business plan of Fiji Mahogany Trust, which each of these 14 stations should know what's going on at the trust. Then only will they be able to develop their own plan aligned to the overall plan of the head office.
With substantial revenue that could be generated from the process, there is also a need to educate landowners on the processes involved.
We hope the accountability goes right across the industry so that the harvesters, the operators, the processors are all talking on the same wavelength.
Issues discussed have come about as a result of analyzing past data.
Fiji Mahogany Trust has done a study of the industry, and besides the lease monies that they get, which is $10 per hectare, and stumpage that they're entitled to, if the logs get to the mill, it's very small. It is our intention to change this for the benefit of the landowners.
Part of the objective of the meeting is to align Fiji Mahogany Trust outputs to that of government sustainable economic development roadmaps. Apisolome Rambo, FJ1 News.
The Legal Aid Commission is now confident that its lawyers are now better educated on the Constitution as well as their legal ethics. This follows the end of a two-day intensive training today. Apisolome Rambo with the details.
Introducing these legal practitioners to skills and knowledge they'll need to acquire to enhance their professional capacity. Yesterday, participants went through the enforceability of constitutional provisions such as the Bill of Rights and the closely attached social and economic rights.
Today is on legal ethics, so it's about the rules of ethics that bind the legal profession, where they come from, how they're developing, how solicitors are regulated in Fiji as compared with other parts of the world.
The workshop have also covered cases which have come before the Independent Legal Service Commission, which gives rights to allegations of professional misconduct.
And the whole purpose of today is to ensure that the Legal Aid Commission lawyers always act professionally and without conducting themselves in a way that would lead to the Independent Legal Services Commission.
Shamim says for all legal practitioners, getting this sort of guidance right at the beginning of their career is very important.
It's for this reason that the Chief Registrar has special ethics workshops for new practitioners before the first practicing certificates are issued. In other words, they have to do mandatory ethical training before they get their practicing certificates. So a number of the young lawyers have already had some ethics training, but the senior lawyers have not. And I know that when I was a young lawyer, nobody taught me legal ethics separately. It wasn't taken very seriously. Now everybody takes it seriously.
According to Shamim, there is an understanding that if lawyers understand that ethics is the basis of their professions, they are likely to remain on the right side of the law. Episode Rambo, FJ1 News.
In commemoration of International Women's Day yesterday, women turned up in numbers last night to walk through the streets of Suva. Organized by the Fiji Women's Crisis Center every year, the annual Reclaim the Night March is focused on raising awareness about violence against women and ways people can participate in actively putting an end to it. The march is symbolic, where women that support the cause walk through the darker streets of Suva and past nightclubs. During the march, participants talk about women's safety on the streets. Despite celebrations to mark International Women's Day yesterday, some women continue to face violence daily. With increasing reports of domestic violence, former Judge Nazat Shamim says that statistics may not really reflect reality.
It's a timely reminder. Despite progress for many women in many areas, most of our women continue to suffer, but no longer in silence.
I think what we're getting very shocked about is the number of cases that have come before the courts. But we have to remember that when a large number of cases come before the courts, it doesn't necessarily mean that suddenly there's not a lot more violence against women. It means that there are more reported cases of violence against women.
According to Shamim, the fact that more cases have been reported could mean women are beginning to have more confidence in the system.
But it could also mean that there is more violence against women. We have no real way of finding out. But whatever is the cause of the large number of cases before the courts, it is a matter of great concern. And it puts a great burden on the justice system and all the law enforcement agencies to ensure that they're dealing with these cases in an equitable manner, to ensure that women who are victims and children who are victims are able to give evidence without fear and intimidation and harassment. And lastly, that the court system is able to recognize the experiences of women when it comes to things like late complaints.
And it may well be that concerns by women have not fell on deaf ears. Just a couple of weeks ago, Prime Minister Josiah Vorengem Bainimarama spoke strongly about the issue.
Before our courts at the present time are 739 cases of sexual assault. These are cases pending in all courts, including the Supreme Court and Court of Appeal. 739. Of these, 477 are cases of sexual assault against people over the age of 13. But there are another 262 cases of child sexual assault. And the overwhelming majority of all these cases are assaults on females. The days of any lenient attitude to raping, demeaning, mistreating, and exploiting women are over.
And of course, a stern reminder to our men.
But the rest of the country needs to fall in line. We need an urgent revolution in the attitude of men towards women, because that is clearly the problem here.
Apisolome Rambo, FJ1 News.
Ahead in the news, more legal aid centers to open soon. Welcome back. The Legal Aid Commission is looking at expanding its services with additional offices located around the country. This can also mean an increase in the current workforce to cater for the expansion.
Access to legal services can be a problem for many. However, in line with the current government's commitment to ensure anyone can access legal services despite your income level, the Legal Aid Commission will soon open more doors.
We are going to open up doors in Navua from the mid of this month, And then the program is that we are going to open doors in Tavyuni and Savu Savu by mid of this year. So basically, the commission is expanding, and we are looking at more centers coming in.
It's the first expansion planned by the commission.
With that comes in expansion of manpower. So that means we are recruiting more lawyers, more support staff. And it is important that we maintain the quality service delivery to our clients. The lawyers therefore need to be trained.
This means more people will be able to access legal services they could not access previously.
We are dealing with the impoverished persons or people of this country, the impoverished Fijians. So what had happened is this, that in 2010 we started doing some civil work. We started doing probate administration, drafting of wills, withdrawal of FNPF in absence of nomination or invalid nomination. We have started now doing deed poll documents. So these are the additional services that the Legal Aid Commission has put on board.
Apisalome Rambo, FJ1 News.
Lawyers were reminded about the rules that govern their work in a recent workshop on the 2013 Constitution. Legal ethics is an area lawyers need to realize their professional career is founded on. Apisalome Rambo with the details.
The code of ethics which binds a lawyer's professional conduct is based on common law principles. Developed by judges, it is a guideline all legal practitioners must adhere to.
So these are the principles of fidelity and secrecy and diligence. Those are the three common law principles of ethical conduct. That a lawyer must devote himself or herself to the client's interest, that a lawyer must act honorably, must not deceive the court, must keep all confidential information confidential. In fact, a lawyer is supposed to take a client's secrets to the grave with him or her.
These are also rules that dictate their relationship with the court, the judiciary, and members of the community.
Many lawyers say that, they come to workshops because they need the continuing legal education points. But of course they should come to workshops because they need the continuing legal education. Because if a lawyer is not diligent and is not up to date with the way the law has changed, then how will that lawyer give proper advice to the clients? So diligence is another very important rule of ethical conduct.
Shamim says it is vital for lawyers to compare rules of conduct under the Legal Practitioners Act and common law principles.
What we did was we looked at a number of cases before the ILSC to see the sorts of conduct which have got lawyers into difficulties in the past in Fiji, with a hope that of course there will be no repetition in the future. So, ensure that people have learnt from the mistakes that have made in the past.
Apisalome Rambo, FJ1 News.
The Fiji Intellectual Property Office will soon embark on a mission to make some of our towns free of piracy, and authorities have come up with a practical solution. Apisalome Rambo with the details.
It's an issue that has plagued the national commercial front. Piracy in whatever form is illegal, and it seems combating the issue will take a concerted effort.
I went to see Jay White in Singatoka, Chief Administrator. I said, wouldn't it be good if you made Singatoka pirate-free for local music? So what we've done, we've come to some arrangement where before they get the business licenses, the pirates have got to sign a document which says they won't do it anymore. We'll leave the international products to one side. We want to look after local products.
According to O'Neill, the initial approach was not received well, but in the end, good sense prevailed.
So everyone signed. And now it doesn't matter whether the police do anything, because if they are caught, they'll lose the business license, and then it's $500 for a new business license.
You're telling me, Terence, that Singatoka is going to be the first pirate-free town in Fiji?
That's the news.
O'Neill believes this approach can be quite effective and should be applied on a national scale.
And when I go to Lambasa, I want to talk to the Chief Administrator. I want him to do exactly the same thing.
How long has the project in Singatoka been going for?
3 months. Quite recent. Well, the first thing they did was complain. The pirates complained and said, what about the internet shops? They're quite right. They're not in the right, but all they're saying is someone else is doing it as well.
Apisalome Rambo, FJ1 News.